Good evening, everyone. Welcome to April 7th regular council meeting. It's 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to confirm the agenda, but we have a couple things that we would like to remove. We would like to remove 9.1, 9.9, 11.2, and if that's okay with you, Councillor Corbeil, 11.2.
Yeah, may I ask why?
We're hoping that to have all of council here.
Okay, yep, I'm good with that.
Thank you. And 12.2. Anyone else have any amendments to the agenda?
Your Worship, we also have, we'd like to make an amendment to move item 9.5 to item 5.2. And we also have one more administrative inquiry, 15.4, and that's from Councillor Bauer.
Everyone get those changes? Councillor Corbeil?
I will move the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Councillor Sobel?
Yeah, I've got my hand up here, Your Worship. I appreciate the explanation for why Councillor Corbeil's issue is not going ahead. Is there any specific reason why everything else is not going ahead, or is there any?
So 9.1 has been asked to be removed by administration. It will be brought back in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
9.9. Oh, it's just being held over as well.
It obviously will be coming back.
It will be coming back, yes. And then what was the other one? 12.2 is just being removed because, again, we would like all of council to be here for it. Are you okay with that?
Well, actually, I'm not, Your Worship. I'm not. I mean, we could go through the rest of the term without having 7 members at this council meeting, at this council table. I don't know if that's a good reason to be not dealing with issues that we don't have a full council. Councillor Corbeil's issue is hers to speak on, and she she agrees that all 7 should be here, then that's fine. But putting this off to just another day just makes the next agendas busier. And that's why they're on here today. This is the time allotted for these. So I will not support moving these forward on those grounds. But
so the one that
that's just me.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. So the one you're inquiring about is 11.2? Or
actually,
no,
it's 12.2.
12.2, correct?
Right.
Thank you. Doug, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, we will put 12.2 on the April 21st council meeting, regardless of attendance.
There is Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Worship. I was wondering if we could please add the 12.2 bylaw 21-07 offsite levy bylaw to the committee of the whole. There's quite a lot to discuss on that, and I would like to have that opportunity to ask administration some questions and have a lively discussion about whether or not that fits with our strategic plan at the committee of the whole. Is that possible, CEO Lagar?
Through you, Madam Chair, we were already asked to try and not add any more items to the April 14th committee of the whole meeting due to the heavy agenda that's already on that. It's certainly council's choice, but it'll be a long, long meeting.
That would be my my ask, is that we have a real good discussion on that. I don't know if we'll be able to do that during regular council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. This was the item that we were requested by administration to forward our questions, concerns, and discussions we had, so that they could be encapsulated for discussion. I think to move a discussion forward. We were asked to forward that to administration. Am I correct on that?
I believe you're correct, but I'll let Jim tell you.
Yes, it was. I had sent out an email asking for anyone who had questions to submit them, so administration could be prepared for the answers, or with the answers. I did not receive one response.
All right.
Through you, Madam Chair, we'll include it on the April 14th Committee of the Whole meeting as the last item unless there's objections from council. Once again, I would ask that you please, if you have questions, forward them, Jim, so that administration can be prepared to respond to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Sobel. You're muted. You are muted.
Of course I am. Just wondering, Your Worship, if we could have a specific vote on this item as part of the agenda as to when it will be adjourned to, because I'd like to see it go to the regular council meeting myself. So I'm objecting to it going to it in camera or to the committee of the whole.
Okay.
Your worship.
Thank you, Jen.
No worries. So it would be administration's recommendation that you leave item 12.2 out of deleting it from the agenda at this time,
we can discuss
and then
it.
deal with it when you get to that matter on the agenda.
Everyone okay with that? All right, so Councillor Corbill, will you accept a friendly amendment to your confirmation?
You bet.
So are we good with that motion? There is a motion on the floor. All in favor? And that's passed. We have no in-camera items, no presentations, so we're going to move to delegations, and I'd like to welcome the Happy Gang.
Good evening. I'm Lorraine Bishop. I've lived in this area all my life, but I've been in Strathmore here for the last 12 years, and I have been a member of the Happy Gang that long. I'm president for this year and next year. Our club is very active, and I believe everybody received a package of information about the lease extension. So I'll turn it over to my secretary, Arlene Wall.
Hi, I'm Arlene Wall, and I'm the secretary. I've been a member of the Happy Gang since 2015. I've lived in the Strathmore area since 1985. Upon my retirement, I joined the Happy Gang and started teaching Mahjong. And we've become very active with the Mahjong. We have 2 groups going. And in the package that I sent out, it included all of the activities that we have. There are some members that would like to see more activities in the evening and younger people. When I joined the Happy Gang, I thought I was pretty young. And I didn't want to be where there were a bunch of old people. So there is no restriction on our membership. Anybody 50 plus can join. We are open 6 days a week from 9 o'clock in the morning until about 4:30 in the afternoon. And anybody that wants to start any other activities are welcome to do so. So are there any questions?
Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this information. I didn't know half of this stuff, and I was very interested to see, for instance, that the Happy Gang contributed to the building, that portion of the library building, actually, or what people would consider the library building, anyways. So I thought that was very interesting, and so I'm grateful that you supplied that information. One question that I have is who currently does the programming or is in charge of the programming? Is that entirely done by the Happy Gang and paid for by the Happy Gang?
The programming is all done by the Happy Gang, the board of directors. We have policies and procedures, and one of the policies is that if you want to start a new activity, you would have a written question to the acting board at the time, and they would consider it and try to find a time that's available to have the activity. So it's all board driven. We're all volunteers, and so it is board driven.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just would like to have a comment, not a question. I was very, very pleased with the information that you submitted to us. It was so nice to hear some of the history of the Happy Gang, and to have a really such a much better understanding of not only how many members you have, but all the different activities. So I just want to say thank you for that, and thank you for making a point of coming this evening. It really means a lot to council. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Happy Gang. I really appreciated your pamphlet, and I hadn't seen it before, so it was really great to see it. The comment that, the question that I get most often, I think that you addressed it, was renting your facility. And do you have a set cost for renting the facility in the evening? And does it matter whether they are seniors or non-seniors? And I appreciate what you put in. I appreciate the comment about needing to have your own liability insurance. But those are my questions. Thank you, Your Worship.
We do have a rental policy, and we had someone that was looking after the rentals, but we've been shut down for the last 6 months, so consequently there have been no rentals.
Right.
It costs $75 to rent our facility, and that is just the main hall with the kitchen. That's not the room that has the pool tables in. We've spent a lot of money on the pool tables, so that's not available for people to just come in and use without supervision. It is, I guess, kind of limited when there are children. We've had questions to rent for birthday parties and so forth, but that's not something that we really want to do at this time.
Thank you, Arlene. The group that most would be most interested probably in renting this room when COVID restrictions are different or are lessened would be the groups like the Seniors Advisory and the groups that are connected to that, which would be the seniors coffee groups. And they would not be interested in the recreational capacity, but more in a meeting capacity room. The library has been accommodating, but of course they're also very, very busy and sometimes can't accommodate. And so right now, as I understand it, your days are completely booked. Your meeting rooms are completely booked 6 days a week during the day?
That's correct. It would have to be evening meetings, and I have been in contact with the Senior Advisory Committee already. One of the members happens to be also a member of the Happy Gang, and we discussed this. And
oh, very good. Yeah.
She didn't feel that it was something that they were interested in at this time because they're not into evening meetings. Us seniors don't like to go out much in the evening anyway, especially in the winter. So, yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit. We've been really, really busy in the club. When I joined the Happy Gang 7 years ago, the Happy Gang was not known for being very happy. There were some dissenters in the group, and a new executive came on board, and we went from about 130 members up to 185 in 1 year. So we feel that we've done a really good job and we've kept everybody happy. We have a lot of fun, and we have to turn people away when we have our Christmas party because we can't hold all the people that would like to come.
I think that you've been clearly a wonderful success. And my last question is, do you have a capacity within your meeting area to leave literature? So one of the challenges for seniors, we have lots of seniors who don't utilize social media and do often access things like the seniors handbook and other communications of interest to seniors. And we're wondering if you have some capacity within your building that, or your rooms, that would allow for us, for seniors to leave information.
We have, just inside our front doors, we're very limited, as you are here with the sanitization and stuff right now, but we do have a table that is full of literature that people bring us, and that's there for people to get. People quite often stop in and pick it up. And so, yes, we do that. We do presentations anytime somebody asks. I brought my presentation trifold along tonight, but it's out in the hallway. We've presented to the Senior Advisory Committee. We presented to the Women's Conference that was held at Hope Covenant a year or so ago. Yes, we do presentations, and we love to present and tell people about who we are and what we do.
Thank you so much. Very appreciative of everything you brought to us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Sobel?
Thank you, Your Worship, and Arlene, thank you very much for all the information that you've supplied. The membership amount that you have in your group, it was the one thing that really struck me as I was reading the documentation. I can't believe you guys are up to 180 people. So well done on that. It's a great opportunity for the plus 50s to get together, and I know they're quite enjoying it, and you guys have done an amazing job. And Your Worship, I have a motion when it's appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Corbill?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to thank you guys for coming forward to council with your information and everything else. I really think that Happy Gang is a staple in our community, and I think that there would be a lot of people lost if we didn't have this. So I do very much value the Happy Gang.
Thank you, Councillor Corbill. Councillor Peterson, did you have something else to add? So I do believe that the lease for the Happy Gang has been distributed to everyone. Does everyone have a copy? So I think we're ready with your motion, Councillor Sobel, if that's where you're going.
Yeah, it is, Your Worship. Thank you. And I would move the council approve the lease extension appendum to the 2017 Happy Gang lease agreement.
There's a motion on the floor. Everyone in favor? And that's moved. Thank you very much, Happy Gang. Your lease is now ready to be signed. Come on up to the podium.
I just wanted to thank the council for adopting the motion that we didn't have to pay any utilities this year. It was a very pleasant surprise, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Turn on your mic. Turn on your mic. Thank you. For all of you that didn't hear, the donation of the utilities went to the handy bus. So our donation to the Happy Gang was then donated on. Thank you very much, ladies. Have a great evening. We're moving on to our second delegation. I believe we have Councillor Breaker here. Sorry, Ruben. Are you there?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm here to assist in any clarification that's needed on the next agenda item.
So the agenda item that Councillor Breaker is here to discuss is the safe transport for members of Siksika Nation during inclement weather. Are you going to speak to it?
Sure, I'll speak on it. Thanks, Chair. So thank you again. Thank you, Council, for bringing this to your table. As many of you know, we have sat at our Siksika Town of Strathmore Council table with our technicians, Mr. Legore, and as a part of the MOU signing with the RCMP back in, was that November, Bob? I can't remember when that was, but as a part of that follow-up to that MOU signing, this is one of the action items that we have moved on, and it is basically any of our nation members who are involved in any situation with the RCMP. Once they're released from the detachment, we wanted to work on a service deliverable to ensure that our nation members get home safe. And we come up with this MOU draft, and it's before you, and we still have to bring it back to our council. I believe it's on the agenda tomorrow. But anyway, nonetheless, that's where we're at today. And it's not only for inclement weather, it's just to make sure that our nation members have that option to go home. And, instead of risking any nation members walking on, especially on 817, that highway is very narrow. And, I have picked up nation members walking on there, and, I can't imagine any traumatic incidences that we could possibly avoid with any fatal or any incidents where a motor vehicle is involved. So that's what we're kind of leaning towards in this initiative. And like I said, it's a part of that MOU that we had signed with Strathmore and RCMP. So in a nutshell, that's the gist of it. I know Councillor Bob was very instrumental in this, as was Jay Salmon of the RCMP. So if there's any questions or any other background information, feel free to join in or ask. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Breaker. Councillor Sobel.
Well, Emma, thank you, and thank you for attending, Councillor Breaker. I'm going to read something. I'm probably going to repeat a couple of things that Buck said, but I want to keep the context in complete in this matter. So when representatives of the town of Strathmore and Siksika Nation gathered together on the 15th of November, it was November 15th, to sign a memorandum of agreement, it was clearly understood that this was going to be more than a paper exercise. By signing the agreement, we agreed to the purposes as outlined, the shared principles, and the shared objectives. On October 28th, 2020, the town of Strathmore, Siksika Nation, and the RCMP signed an additional letter of agreement. And once again, purpose, shared principles, and shared objectives were outlined. One of those objectives did place the RCMP, the onus on the RCMP detachment commander to work with Siksika Nation and the town of Strathmore to develop options for prisoners who are released from custody to access services and or transportation as required. The subcommittee, which was comprised of council members and administration from Siksika Nation and the town of Strathmore, met frequently with the detachment commander. It was clear from the initial stages that this specific task could not be left for him to deal with by himself. Respecting the spirit and the call to action that the letter of understanding created, we first confirmed that there was a significant concern for Siksika Nation members being released from RCMP custody in inclement or extremely cold weather. With no transportation readily available to some, concerns were raised that a desire to return to their homes in Siksika would mean walking or hitchhiking the 75-kilometer trip. In my previous life as a peace officer, giving a released prisoner a ride home when other transportation was not available was rather routine. But things have changed, and liability has become such an issue that the free rides are discouraged or prohibited. The problem, however, remains, and our joint responsibility that we do what we can to prevent injury or death to a person released from custody is important and is the right thing to do. The letter of understanding that's before council requires financial investment in the amount of $1,000 per year from both councils. And the responsibility of when this program will be available to a released person from custody lies with the RCMP at the time of release. If offered, it will be up to the individual person as to whether or not to partake. I appreciate the participation and the involvement of Siksika Nation councillors Ruben Breaker, Sam Crowfoot, Susan Solway, as well as RCMP Acting Detachment Commander Jay Salmon and the Town of Strathmore administration, which has resulted in the creation of a letter of understanding and a program designed to increase safety for those in need. I also appreciate that some of those members are either joining us on video and live tonight via video. And those are my comments, Your Worship. I hope and I would request that this matter be supported by council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also very much support this recommendation by administration. I thank the committees of Siksika Nation members and our own council for their work on this. I believe that the safe transport of all individuals is important, but especially ones that are going to our neighboring nation of Siksika, because it is far away, and typically some of these members are brought to the RCMP station and don't have any type of transportation on their own. So my question is, do we have statistics currently on how many members of Siksika have been released from RCMP on a yearly basis, and will we be keeping statistics going further?
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Breaker, do you have any answers to that?
Yeah, at this time, we Constable Salmon was going to look into those numbers. I think, and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not too sure if they have specific statistics for Siksika. I'm not too sure how that process is identified within the RCMP system. But that's one thing we wanted to look at, because we're also looking at this in another sector of our joint action plan. But we wanted to identify a process where it is documented. And actually, yes, Bob, in our last meeting, we did mention we were going to have some stats identified moving forward. But as per right now, I don't think there is. But Bob, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Councillor Sobel, you're muted.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the only statistic we were able to get, and this was looked at, dealt with any member of the nation that wanted to go back to Siksika. And we're into, per year, probably a few dozen times, 3 or 4 dozen occasions when that happens. But this letter of understanding is specific to incidents where it is extremely cold or very inclement weather, or there are special circumstances that require this. So it's not a real good statistic to watch, because those numbers were never kept. There were circumstances that were were estimated of situations where someone had to could have used the ride home, and we're not suggesting that everyone's going to use this program anyway. This is totally up to the individual as to whether or not they're interested in getting back to Siksika safely in a vehicle. And what I can say is that those numbers, those statistics will start being kept once the program is started, if indeed is approved.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Go ahead, Councillor Bauer.
I really appreciate that, because I'm thinking that it would be nice, even in 6 months to a year time, if someone would come back to council and let us know if the money's adequate. I would imagine that a trip there and back would be in excess of $100, and I want to make sure that there's enough money here and that we keep an eye on what's going on and who's using the program, even, if we're having repeat people or whatnot, because then we could look into something like a ride share program and other ways to get Siksika members back to the nation. I'm also wondering if a local taxi company has been chosen for this program, or if you've chosen another way to get your members back to the nation.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Breaker?
Yeah. Sorry. So thanks, Rain, for those comments. And yes, that was part of the process, was to come back in either the first quarter or halfway through the fiscal year, and we'll review. We'll evaluate how this service is being utilized, and we'll see if the funds allocated are sufficient enough. And yes, that was part of the process. Also, was to negotiate once this is approved. The next step is to go and negotiate with one of the taxi companies in town here to identify pretty well a flat rate, because we have one destination back home that we go there and back, because as you know, we're a big nation. And it's very long and narrow, stemming from Nameka all the way to Bizano. So, but we wanted to have one central location, which is the Siksika overnight shelter, and that's how that process would roll out.
Thank you.
I very much support that, and thank you for answering my question, Councillor Breaker. The reason that I was thinking, are we going to go with a local taxi company? I'm glad that you answered it, but anyone that deals with any of our Indigenous members, I think really needs to have that cultural training that we've talked about so many times. And I think that should be the focus on any time when we intentionally choose a company, is that they're willing to understand how important it is to have the knowledge of those cultural nuances. And so that's why I was thinking that. That's the train of thought I was going on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Sobel, did you want to respond to something, or can I move
Thank you.
next?
Yes, Your Worship. Just to carry on just a little bit with that. First of all, the responsibility for choosing the taxi company will be with our administration, and that was by agreement. I appreciate those comments in regards to what we should be looking at when we choose a company. And the other part to that is in regards to the stats. I'd like to officially welcome you, Councillor Bauer, to the policing subcommittee. I know you haven't hit any meeting; it just hasn't worked out. But Sergeant Salmon is at all of these meetings, so you won't have to wait for the quarter. We'll have up to dates on how the system's working, and the program is unique, and it's new, and no, I don't know of anybody that's ever done this. So we're gonna be keeping a very close eye on it, and appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Thank you very much for being patient. Councillor Corbill, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I want to thank this for coming forward. I do have one question, though. Is another sector that we're going to be looking at for this, would that be the hospital, Alberta Health Services? that's where I was going to go. I do think that that's probably just about as important as this. And I will look forward to that. But yeah, I definitely will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corbill. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say that I'm so very proud of the members of this tripartite agreement or this tripartite committee, Pomagapi. And I think that sometimes getting to this place didn't come easy for you. I know that sometimes the powers that be in our federal and provincial environment did not make this easy for you. And I really appreciate that you understood, and that through the lived experience of the Six of Gates and having Councillor Sobel, having a former RCMP officer on this committee was extremely useful, so that lived experience could be applied. And I think that you were really courageous in keeping on this and overcoming the barriers that were placed in front of you. And you really, I think, have led all of us as friends and neighbors to a place where we're now all held accountable. And as Councillor Sobel mentioned, this is a new territory. And so that we are all held accountable for our care for one another, I think is a remarkable step forward in our anti-racism initiative and our efforts to make our communities wholesome. And so at your pleasure, Chair, I would be more than pleased to bring the motion forward.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Montgomery, did you have something to comment on first?
I do, yes, thank you. Can somebody please tell me what the current policy or process is for when anybody is released in inclement weather?
Chair.
Through you, Madam Chair, could you repeat the question, please?
Can you repeat the question, please, Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering what the current policy is for the RCMP when they release anybody in inclement weather.
Thank you. Councillor Breaker, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jason, Councillor Jason, for the question. So as far as I know, once I guess the time is up, they're released, and I can't recall if Jay did mention what was the policy. Bob, do you have that information? But it is, as far as I know, if it is like extremely cold, they're to keep them safe within the facility. But this service, like I said, that in the subcommittee table, we had mentioned that once they're done or they serve their time, it's out of the RCMP's jurisdiction. But that is a good question in terms of inclement weather. What's that policy? We can't force anybody to use this service that we're going to be hopefully implementing. But yeah, no. Bob, do you have any clarification on that policy?
Go ahead, Councillor
Sure.
Sobel.
The thing to remember is once a prisoner is released from custody, then there is no policy that dictates any responsibilities on the part of the RCMP. That person's a free person, and having a policy on what to do with that person would be akin to having a policy to do on anybody out in 30 below weather. Common sense takes place, kicks in, and it would be routine for that person to be allowed to make phone calls to get a ride or to call a taxi or to. One of the things they can't do anymore, though, is they can't drive them home, and that is one of the issues. That was one of the ways that lots of people got home in inclement weather, but that doesn't exist anymore because of liability issues. So you have to always remember that you're dealing with a free person, a person who has no responsibility and no obligation to explain to you where he's going, where he or she is going, or or whether they're just going next door or anything. Most releasing officers take that extra step and inquire about that, especially if it's really bad out there. But specifically with Siksika people, if they want to walk home, we cannot stop them either. They have to be allowed to leave unless there's other circumstances. But this is at least an opportunity to get them home safe.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Montgomery, did you have a response?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you very much, Buck, for coming. I really appreciate all of your insights all the time. Yeah, and this might come as like little surprise to the people in this group, but I'm always interested in ensuring that we're dealing with everybody equally. And so my concern is, obviously I don't want any members of Siksika to be put out in inclement weather, where they don't have the ability to get home in a reasonable amount of time. I'm actually equally concerned with anybody who's being released in inclement weather, regardless of whether they're Black, Asian, white, Indigenous. And so I'm wondering if maybe we should be looking at extending some sort of a policy where anybody is given the option in inclement weather to be given the option of being provided a ride.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Sober, did you have a motion? You are muted.
I believe Councillor Peterson does.
Councillor Peterson?
I would move that council support the signing of the letter of understanding. Can you pronounce that? Pomakapi. The letter of understanding for the safe transport of members of Siksika Nation during inclement weather. And if I might speak to it briefly, Your Worship. The reason that this is before us is that across Canada, there are significant statistics regarding safe transport of Indigenous persons. And it is of concern, as Councillor Sobel pointed out in a previous meeting, that so many of the people who have been severely harmed as a result of not having this policy in place are Indigenous. And the statistics are broad, they are prolific, and they are horrific. And they can be found in everything from the Toronto Star to Saskatoon newspapers and across our country. So I'm very, very, very much in favor of this and very grateful to the people who brought it forward, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Montgomery, did you have some more comments?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. So we have
Yeah, so I was just going to say, I definitely support providing rides for the people of Siksika.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? And that motion is passed. Thank you again, Councillor
Your Worship,
Breaker.
if I might, I have a motion actually. I would like to move that administration come back with a report on information regarding what it would look like to have a policy in place where we provide anybody that is released from the RCMP
Point of order, Your Worship. Point of order, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel.
That item is not on the agenda. I wonder if we could proceed with a notice of motion on that, on a new item.
I'm just looking to administration for a little help. Point of order.
Your Worship, sorry, so I believe Councillor Sobel is correct. However, that's a call of the chair.
So again, point of order is allowed at this time. Sorry, Councillor Montgomery, you're welcome to bring back that motion to another council meeting. And I thank you for your honest answers and questions. And that motion was passed, so we're moving on. Thank you again, Councillor Breaker. Did you want to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Again, thank you, Council, for supporting this initiative. And yeah, I think it's important what what Councilor Montgomery was saying, and maybe that could be some of these follow-up items that we discussed at our big table. But yeah, there is going to be more coming up, like this initiative. It's as Councilor Corbeil mentioned, there's going to be another sector that we're going to be looking into that's identical to this. So yeah, I think it's great, and like I said, I like that idea of that policy. Maybe that's something we could look into at the bigger table. So with that, Town Council, I'd like to thank you for supporting this and working with us on this diligently. I know Chair Carden Black Rabbit is watching this as he's the Chair of Community Relations. So, but yeah, I look forward to doing more work with you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Breaker. I just want to take this opportunity to say a few things. Mayor Fuel is away sick this evening, so I am Deputy Mayor Terry Cox. I'm filling in. I also want to point out to all of my fellow councillors that according to our policy bylaw, our procedures bylaw, we can only speak twice to each item. And with our full agenda, I would like to ensure that we're respectful so that we can help keep the agenda on track. And moving on, I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent. Oh, there is no consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to confirm the minutes of March 17th's public hearing. Councillor Bauer.
I move that council adopt the March 17th, 2021 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Any comments or concerns? And you've heard the motion. All in favor? Thank you, that's passed. And I'm looking for a motion for the next regular council meetings. Councillor Bauer?
I'm sorry, Your Worship. I actually did that opposite in our council meeting package. I believe that the public hearing minutes are first and the regular council meeting minutes are second. So I read the regular council meetings 7.2 when I should have read 7.1.
I think I'll allow it.
I have one amendment to make to the March 17th, 2021 regular council meeting minutes that I just asked to approve. And that was that Councillor Montgomery, at the end of the meeting, didn't have time. He wanted administration to look into adding a donation line for Happy Cat on our current license forms when people come in to pay their cat licenses. And that's not recorded in the meeting minutes. So may I also ask that be included?
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. I'm just going to look to administration just to see what we've got going on. We approved the regular council meeting minutes.
Yeah, Your Worship, you've approved the minutes. I believe what happened during that meeting was there was a motion put forward, but it was not allowed because we were out of time. So we wouldn't record a motion that was not on the table.
Did that answer your question, Councillor Bauer?
Is there a way to bring this up so that it's not lost?
Your Worship, we can include that in an upcoming council meeting agenda as an administrative inquiry, perhaps.
Thank you.
That would be great. Thank you.
And I'm looking
I'm sorry, Your Worship.
That's okay. I'm looking for a motion to adopt the March 17th public hearing minutes. Councillor Montgomery?
Sorry, I thought we were approving the public hearing meeting minutes last time because I actually have an amendment for the regular council meeting minutes. So.
Administration?
So, Your Worship, you've actually already approved the regular council meeting minutes because I believe Councillor Bauer moved that motion first. You haven't dealt with the public hearing minutes. So in order to deal with the regular council meeting minutes again, you'd have to pass a motion to reconsider your previous motion.
Would you like to do that, Councillor Montgomery?
I'll let Councillor Bauer do that if she wants.
Councillor Bauer?
Yes, with my apologies, I move that council revisit the March 17th, 2021 regular council meeting minutes and reapprove them, please.
Thank you. Councillor Montgomery, did you have a comment now?
Well, I can comment after we pass or defeat this, I guess.
Thank you. There's a motion on the table. All in favor? Thank
So
you.
the only amendment that I have is just that under the public feedback on the conversion therapy, it says under support of the bylaw, Ms. Melissa Lang made, and I'm under the impression that she did not support the bylaw as it's currently written, and that's the only amendment I have to suggest. And with that, I can move the adoption of the minutes from the March 17th regular council meeting with that amendment.
So it's my understanding that you're looking for it to say that she was not in support of the bylaw as it's currently written?
Yeah, I think based on her comments, she was opposed to the bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. I'm looking for that motion, though.
Yeah, I just made the motion.
Administration?
Your Worship, administration would like to recommend to council to postpone adoption of the regular council meeting minutes so that we can review the recording of the meeting, please.
Thank you. Did you hear that, Councillor Montgomery?
Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
So administration is recommending that we postpone the adoption of those minutes until that they can go through the meeting and decipher.
Sure. I'll move that we postpone deciding on the March 17th regular council meeting minutes.
Just 2 seconds. Administration, he already put a motion on the table, though, to adopt them as amended. Does he have to? Okay. So we've heard that motion. All in favor? This is the motion to refer. Thank you. That has been passed. All right. We have no tabled items. Oh, I thought we already did those.
I'll move we adopt the public hearing minutes for the March 17th public hearing.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery, for saving me. You've heard that motion. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's moved. Slowly but surely. We are now moving on to 9.2, items from administration, proclamation of National Volunteer Week. And I believe Catherine is speaking to this motion.
I am. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. This evening, I'm here to ask Council proclaim April 18th to the 24th as National Volunteer Week. Just a couple things to add to the report. We have to do things a bit differently this year, so we've decided to do our activities virtually. And the first thing, well, one of the things that we're going to do is a virtual thank you card. And that's going to give everyone in the community an opportunity to sign this card that will help show our sincere gratitude to all the volunteers near and far. And the second activity that we plan to do is that we are going to place a thank you to our volunteers in the newspaper that people can clip, cut out and post in the windows of their homes and businesses. So tonight, I'm just asking that April 18th to the 24th be proclaimed as the National Volunteer Week.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion. Thank you, Councillor Montgomery.
I will move the council proclaim April 18th to 24th as National Volunteer Week.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Now it's open for discussion. Councillor Sobel. You are on mute.
If I stopped unmuting, this wouldn't happen. I was just going to comment that I appreciate the report that was supplied by Catherine and her team as well. But the number that really hits you is that every year, and I'm quoting from the report, every year a community benefits from over 70,000 hours of volunteering, which is just a phenomenal number. It's just incredible, the people that volunteer in our community. So I think this is a great idea, and be happy to support it. Thank you. I'll go on mute.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Any other discussions? I'm just going to make a couple of comments because Catherine didn't read it. Councillor Sobel just referred to 70 hours of volunteering, and they put in our report that the low estimate of 54 volunteer organizations at 25 hours a week. Thank you, Strathmore. We appreciate everything you do. And we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Hi, Mel. Our next item is recreational cost sharing with Wheatland County. This is not up for discussion. There will be information shared with Mr. Teedy, and then we will have first reading. Thank you.
The executive summary provides a financial summary outlining the cost to the town, both for recreation and grant payments to organizations. Administration had engaged Wheatland County in negotiations for a recreation cost-sharing agreement from September 2019 to March 2020. No negotiations took place from March to August due to COVID-19. Mr. Jim Simpson represented the town of Strathmore, and Harold Johnsrud was a facilitator in this process. In August 2020, Wheatland County hit the pause button to determine the financial impact of the property assessment model and the resulting county finances. Recreation cost sharing with Wheatland County, Rocky View County, and the city of Chestermere would be extremely beneficial to the town of Strathmore. A letter to the minister could be instrumental in getting the recreation cost sharing back on the radar screen and this process restarted. Those are my comments, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teedy. So again, I just want to reiterate that we are looking for a motion only to send a letter to the minister as recommended. So I'm looking for a motion. Councillor Sobel?
I'm happy to provide that motion, Your Worship. I move that council authorize the mayor to sign the attached letter concerning recreation cost sharing with Wheatland County and the letter and executive summary of recreational deficits, grant support payments to community organizations be forwarded to the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Thank you very much. You've all heard the motion. All in favor?
Excuse me, are we going to have discussion?
Councillor Montgomery, there is no discussion on this matter?
Sorry, why
there
is that?
I'm sorry. You're right. Go ahead. Motion's on the floor.
Thank you. So one thing I'm wondering is why we didn't include the amount that we give to the handy bus, for instance. Like over 5 years, we've given $875,000, and I didn't see that included in this list.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Mr. Teedy, do you have an ad?
I'm sorry I do not have the summary with me, but we will review that. And if we've omitted that, we will insert it and include it.
Thank you. Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, and I guess another question I have is, given that Wheatland County, when we look at Rocky View County and we look at Chestermere and we look at Langdon, which is part of Rocky View County, given that those Chestermere and Rocky View County are actually possibly, I think, heavier users of our facilities, I'm wondering if we will be sending a letter to those organizations to enter into negotiations, and if we should be, and I guess, I'm wondering if we'll be sending a letter to the minister as well for those organizations.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Mr. Legore.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Montgomery. That's a separate issue. What we're doing here is trying to share the identical information that Wheatland County shared with the minister for the costs that the town has incurred. We will be talking to the City of Chestermere and Rocky View County about cost sharing, but that's completely separate than what we're doing here. This is just about sending a letter to the minister with the same information that Wheatland County shared with the minister less than a month ago. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation.
Is there any other discussion, comments? So we do have a motion on the floor. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Item 9.4, Business Support Community Futures Wild Rose Partnership Request.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Council. I'm coming here today to speak to an initiative from Community Futures. I think it's a really valuable initiative. It's about capacity building. Obviously, I think that we're all aware that because of the economy over the past few years, most businesses went into COVID without the reserves that would ordinarily get them through any kind of a crisis. This, however, is the most severe crisis, and so additional help is required. This help is in two different parts. One is towards one-on-one customized marketing training for small businesses. The other one helps build mental health initiatives for small businesses. It's a grant that the Community Futures has applied for that I believe is in excess of $150,000. So in terms of like a return on investment, we would be providing a $4,000 cash investment to help secure this much larger loan that would, like I said, build capacity for both marketing and mental health for Strathmore and region business community. That's everything else is in the report there, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Montgomery, did you have a question?
I don't have a motion if you're ready.
Please.
Thank you. I'll move the council approve a $4,000 cash contribution to the Community Futures Wild Rose Mastering Recovery Initiative.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Sobel.
Actually, it's a question to Jeff, to Mr. Person, Your Worship, if I may. I'm wondering how the two items of action that is being taken was developed, and whether or not there is a perceived or an actual need. My only concern is that there be some assurance that our business people are going to take advantage of this program, and the best way to have figured that out is if that need was identified. So that's the roundabout question.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Excellent question, Councillor Sobel. I was really impressed when Community Futures approached me about this, because it's entirely a data-driven approach that they took with this. Last year, actually, from the onset of COVID, for the first 3 months, and then they extended it for an additional month after that, there was a business survey that we helped broadcast into the business community, and so these programs were based off of actual declared need through that survey. So following that survey, then Community Futures took those results away, prioritized the programs that they were able to initiate, and that's where this came from. So it's very much driven from a demonstrated business need in Strathmore.
It's excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Bauer, did you have a question or a comment?
Just a comment, Deputy Mayor Cox. I would like to just please focus everyone's attention to the background context. You have a paragraph, Jeff, that you gave us that really says that Community Futures Wild Rose's goal is to ensure local businesses and entrepreneurs provide the skills and resources necessary to pivot their businesses and assist in the recovery efforts as a result of COVID-19 and other economic challenges faced within the region. The reason I'm very proud about this specific item being discussed is that I've been reading where other municipalities and other businesses are doing exactly that and pivoting. So restaurants are taking out, they're making cookbooks and they're making newsletters and they're sharing recipes. And those newsletters are being either charged a $5 online subscription, or the cookbook is being made for $50. And one restaurant, not too far away, raised almost $24,000, which was a significant amount that was able to help the bottom line while they were closed during the last lockdown. And I think these types of initiatives really help our local. We don't have a lot of big box initiatives in Strathmore. We have more locally owned businesses. And so this type of grant, especially in the amount that Wild Rose is asking for, is really going to be able to help our people in our community. And you know, there's so many opportunities for them to pivot. And I really think Community Futures Wild Rose is the people to be able to make an impact and help it happen. So I am very much in support of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. There is any other comments or questions? There is a motion on the floor. Councillor Montgomery. Thank you. All in favor? And that motion is passed. Thank you. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 9.6, council feedback on the proposed provincial police force. I believe Paul.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before you this evening, I'm happy to bring forward a request from the Village of Hazard in reference to the Honorable Minister of Justice and Solicitor General, and the suggestion of a Alberta Regional Police Force for you to provide us with a request for decision on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion. Councillor Sobel, do you have a motion?
I do. I can read the motion first. Your Worship, I move that council supports the Village of Hazard's request to write a letter to the Honourable Minister of Justice and Solicitor General expressing a lack of support for an Alberta Regional Police Force.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. And now, do you have a comment?
I do, Your Worship. Thank you. So the concept of our province moving towards a provincial police force has been a topic of conversation for decades. Justice Minister Madhu recently stated that the final report prepared by the Alberta Provincial Police Service Transition Secretariat is due to go to Cabinet by the end of this month. At that point, a decision on how to proceed will be made. There will be many factors to review, but I consider the purpose, cost, and reality to be among the most significant. Based on the comments by the Premier, it appears that one of the main goals of this concept is to end the relationship with Ottawa as it pertains to policing. The idea is to have more control over the department that polices our province. I'm not convinced that this is a good thing, and certainly feel that the RCMP who serve in Alberta consider themselves to be a provincial police force. And I speak from experience. In regards to finances, history suggests that this will be a very expensive project. The latest information from the City of Surrey in British Columbia indicates that the cost estimate of a transition to a city police force for that city has tripled to $64 million, and that their residents are now anticipating an average 11% tax increase to pay for the new force. I then consider reality. Realistically, are we really anticipating a great change in the manner in which our province is policed by changing uniforms and quote unquote taking full control? Some will disagree, but it's my position that we are well policed in our municipality and in this province by the RCMP. I support Councillor Fisher's recent motion to write a letter to the Justice Minister expressing a lack of support for an Alberta Regional Police Force. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Is there any other comments? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really just have a question. I do understand that this was brought up at the Wheatland Regional Partnership meeting, but no discussion, like no decision was made. So are we kind of jumping the gun a little bit as a municipality before we meet back with the Wheatland Regional Partnership and we actually bring this to, like they actually bring this to the table and allow all of the stakeholders to vote? I'm just wondering why on a proposed regional police force discussion, we would be supporting a motion by a smaller community when it hasn't been brought back to Wheatland. Am I not on
Bauer.
following the right track?
Mr. Legore has a comment for you or for us.
Through you, Madam Chair, at the Wheatland Regional Partnership meeting, it was requested that all member municipalities please forward a letter to the province expressing opposition to a provincial police force. That's why we're doing this letter here. And we heard from the village of Hussar at the same time, so that's why that's referenced. But it's really stemming from a request from the discussion that was had at the Wheatland Regional Partnership meeting.
Does that answer your questions, Councillor Bauer? So my understanding is it was brought forward at the regional partnership meeting as a request for us to send a letter similar to what Hussar has done.
Okay, so then my question is, why didn't we include the motion from the Wheatland Regional Partnership rather than including the motion from Hussar?
Through you, Madam Chair, there was no motion made at the Wheatland Regional Partnership meeting. It just was a request that all members deal with it at their individual councils.
Thank you. Thank you for clarification. I appreciate that. I'm ready to move on.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other questions or concerns? Councillor Montgomery.
So I'm just noting in the letter from the village of Hussar, it talks about the costs being too high and that there hasn't been any compelling evidence presented or a guarantee of a better service. It seems to me that we're maybe acting prematurely if we're saying that the cost is too high before the province has even had a chance to release estimates or to provide details about what the service could be. I to be honest, don't have kind of a dog in the fight either way. I'm happy with the RCMP, but I'm at the same time I'm open to hearing what the difference would be with the provincial police force. And so I don't think we can, if we're going to send a letter, I don't think we can send a letter saying that, the cost is too high, because we don't know what the actual cost is purported to be. So I guess for that reason, I can't really support this letter as it is. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. I believe the motion is just to request to write a letter to Honourable Minister of Justice and Solicitor General.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct. We're not referencing any costs of a provincial police force because that has not been proven yet. There's many indicators that a provincial police force will cost more, but we will not be referencing that. We're just saying that we're opposed to a provincial police force. We like the RCMP.
Thank you. Does that help, Councillor Montgomery?
Well, maybe we should actually produce a letter so that we could actually vote on an actual text of a letter rather than, we're presented with this letter, like I said, from the village of Hussar that says their issue is that the costs are too high and that there hasn't been compelling evidence presented. And now we're voting on just saying we like the RCMP. So I'm happy to send a letter saying we like the RCMP, but I don't think that really has anything to do with the provincial police force. So I'm not sure how we can vote on a letter that doesn't actually exist yet.
Thank you. Again, I want to reiterate that it does say just to request a letter to be written, not to be sent or signed, but we will look for clarification.
Okay. If we're only voting to write a letter and not send a letter, then is that what your motion was, Councillor Sobel?
Would you like me to read the motion? Councillor Sobel, can you reread the motion?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what the actual intent is here.
No, I've got it. Our normal procedure is, Your Worship, to write and forward a letter in these circumstances. I'm comfortable with CAO's comments that he will not include costs and prices. The text of the letter, the main body of the letter, is going to simply indicate, as per the motion, that there is a lack of support for an Alberta regional police force, and I'm prepared to move ahead with that.
A point of order.
Thank you.
That wasn't what Mr. Legore said. He said that there would be a letter produced to support the RCMP. It didn't say anything about a lack of support for a regional provincial police force.
Councillor Montgomery.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, I said the letter would express that there is no support for provincial police force, that the town supports the RCMP. We will not reference any cost for provincial police force because that has not been determined yet. There is many indicators already in place that the provincial police force will cost more, but they have not been proven yet. It is not typical for letters to come back to council to be approved what the content is. Council approves a letter to be drafted, the mayor signs it, it's sent. If you're going to have letters coming to council, that means you better have all of them coming to council that the mayor is going to be sending. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Legore. Would it be helpful, Councillor Montgomery, if we reread the motion?
Well, Your Worship, I believe you said your understanding was that this was a motion to just produce a letter and not send it.
My apologies for that, Councillor Montgomery. I believe that they've said that the policy and procedures is to write and send, but it is a motion that has been made. It is on the floor. So if there isn't any further discussion, I'll call the motion. All in favor? And that's 4, 1 opposed. All opposed? Thank you. And that is carried. We are moving on to item 9.7, land donation to Wheatland Housing Management Body. Hello, Jim.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I want to apologize to council for some last-minute changes to this request for decision. There's been some last-minute talking and with the architect or the Wheatland Housing Board.
May I? Your Worship, we can't hear.
Oh, there we go.
I'm sorry.
He was muted.
Now I apologize for something else. I did want to apologize to council for the last-minute changes that were necessary to the recommendation that we're making here tonight. We were in discussions with the architect for the Wheatland Housing Management Body, and it was determined that the 4.16 acres that was originally sent to you is in fact going to be 4.7 acres. I did send out a couple of maps, the one showing that where the 4.16 is now 4.7. So again, I apologize for that late change. The recommendation tonight is that council support the land donation, approximately 4.7 acres of undeveloped former commercial industrial property east of Kinsman Lake to the Wheatland Housing Management Body for the development of a new Wheatland Lodge and seniors facility in Strathmore. The Wheatland Housing Management Board of Directors has approved the planning project of a new seniors facility in Strathmore. This facility will address the housing needs of seniors living in the Wheatland housing region. The land donation will form part of the town's contribution to this project. There'll be a value put on the land, and that will be part of our contribution to the project. Again, attached to this is a request from the Wheatland Housing Management Board, and you should have the two now correct maps showing you the land that we're proposing to donate to the board, the body, and also there was a map sent to you, an outline plan of the facility as it would be located on this 4.7 acres of land. And with that, Madam Mayor, I try to answer some questions.
Thank you. I'm looking actually for a motion first before we discuss. Councillor Corbeil.
Yes, I'm ready with the motion. I move that council support the land donation, approximately 4.7 acres of undeveloped former commercial/industrial property east of Kinsman Lake to the Wheatland Housing Management Body for the development of a new Wheatland Lodge seniors facility in Strathmore.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Is there any comments or discussions? Councillor Sobel, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my first question is to Jim, and that I've been back and forth with you this week in regards to the maps, and I just got to get my head around where this thing is going to sit. So when the approximate 4/10 of an acre was added on, I'm just having difficulty in finding out which direction that add-on went. Is that west?
I would call it north, Councillor Sobel.
Southwest, like around the curve?
No, to the north. It'd be the northwest. You know where it says parking?
On this one?
Yes, on that map. Yes, but it's this part here is where it was added to. So
I'm sorry, Jim. I don't see. Sorry.
Can you see my map? No.
I can't see. I can't see it.
So if the map is if you're sitting at the map looking at it,
yep.
To the left, okay, is the part. You see where it says parking? They need additional parking there. To the left.
Are you looking?
Now I'm looking, Jim. I'm looking at the map that you sent me on this afternoon.
Yes.
It was added just south of the staff parking lot.
Yes.
That's correct.
South of the staff parking lot and the
Of the town hall.
the facility, the market garden facility there, that end of it.
Oh. So okay.
So, Councillor Sober, which map are you looking at? I'm sorry.
I'm looking at three of them. I'm trying to look at the one that you sent me today, but unfortunately, that's awful small. The one that I really enjoy looking at is the largest one, the preliminary site plan.
Okay.
And are we are we talking about land just south of where it says future parking?
No, you're at the wrong end. You're at the wrong end of the map.
Okay. So the staff parking, it's which direction from there?
Right to the other end of the strip of land, Councillor Sobel, where it says, yeah, it says parking twice on it.
Yes.
Can you see my map now?
Yes, I can. No. I see the parking though.
Okay, that's the area that was added to it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So, moving on.
Yes.
I'm looking from the on the preliminary site plan. It seems that the land goes into the number of trees there. Are we planning on losing trees?
No, this diagram or location of the land, there'll be no trees removed. They're on the edge.
And if I understand this correctly, this is completely to the east of the tree line.
That's correct.
Thank you. And my last question, has the issue of amphitheater noise been discussed or thought about?
I'm sorry, Councillor Sobel, I'll refer that to CAO Legore, please.
Through you, through to Councillor Stober, through you, Madam Chair, there is no concern about any of the noise from any of the amenities surrounding this facility that will be developed, including the gazebo, the amphitheater, park.
I mean, bearing in mind that this is a seniors lodge, I'm trying to figure out how a band playing at 10:45 at night is not going to affect them. I'm trying to get my head around that. And don't get me wrong, I love this concept and I love this project. I'm just, it's fine on April 7th, 2021 to say that they're not going to be bothered, but I'll tell you what, they're going to be bothered.
If I might speak, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Sobo. Go
That's
ahead,
all I've got.
Councillor
Thank you.
Peterson.
So in our meetings with Wheatland Housing and with Barrie Architecture, this is something that came up through all 8 of the community consultations. It came up in various ways and various contexts. And we certainly had a lot of seniors that were involved in those conversations. And they were not opposed to this. And Lambert Village seniors, for instance, who hear of, they talked about not being disturbed, or if they were disturbed, they were happy in the disturbance of the music from the gazebos and the 50+ housing that is close to the park, both on the Centre Street side and on the Lakeside Boulevard side, spoke very highly in favor of the activities. They talked about being very excited about having access to a farmer's market and being an integral part of all the activities that happen in community. And so I assure you it was an ongoing discussion around that for sure. And we certainly were not discouraged. And I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2, Councillor Sobel, when you and I are living on the 3rd floor, we'll probably have to buy earplugs. But at this point, certainly it was brought up, and people have just been very encouraged. And I'm not talking just about our Strathmore seniors population, but the younger generations of populations that also contributed heavily to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. I was wondering if somebody could possibly explain, just for the public's knowledge, I guess, how this deal works. There's some obligation on the part of the town to provide or to contribute to the a new lodge or a new seniors housing. So I was wondering if somebody could just maybe discuss about how this will fit into that, and then I have a follow-up question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Mr. Legore.
Through you, Madam Chair, the Wheatland Housing Management Body do an extensive research on all available sites within the community, as well as, and in addition to, the community consultation. And all reports came back that this was the best preferred location for the lodge. And this would be the amount of the appraised value of this land would be the amount of the town's contribution to the project, which would have to be matched by Wheatland County. And even from the architect's point of view, all indicators are that this is the best site, and it is close to all amenities that the seniors desire.
Yeah, I certainly, it's certainly a good site. I guess like, so if I'm understanding correctly, so the town of Strathmore and Wheatland County are obligated to basically contribute matching amounts, and the town has the option of contributing land rather than money. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Excuse me, there would be a value placed on this property, a market value, and that would be the town's share contribution.
Okay. And has that, so we've had that appraised on our side, and has, is, I guess, Wheatland County, are they fine with that? Or I guess my question is, like, if we contribute this land, are we going to have to contribute money on top of it?
Through you, Madam Chair, the land has been appraised, and there should be no additional contribution, cash contribution from the town for this development. They may come and ask for some services in kind and I have no idea what those could even be at this time, but there could be that request, but there will be no request for further financial contribution.
Okay. And my other question has to do with the actual building process. So I did sit on a few meetings kind of earlier on in this process, and so I'm familiar somewhat with some of the options for financing. But I'm curious as to what the current proposed model for financing this building will be.
Through you, Madam Chairman, there's two avenues for financing this project. One is called non-capital beds, and the other is capital beds. Non-capital beds means where they have a contract with Alberta Health Services for beds at certain levels of services, and depending what they negotiate them to, they can go right up to the highest level if you want. That's between the Wheatland management body and the province, or the Alberta Health Services. And they sign a contract and they pay so much for each one of those beds in the facility. The other is capital beds, and that's where Alberta Health Services makes a direct contribution for capital beds, for each bed within that facility. They have a dollar figure, which basically gives you a room. There is no question that the Lodge is in a position where they can get 100% financing for this project at very attractive rates. I did that research for them on my own. There is more than one opportunity for them to access funds for the development of this project.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. And Councillor Bauer.
Thank you so much, Your Worship. My question is just to Mr. Simpson. If we go ahead and donate the land, and then when we start to build, there's site remediation that needs to be done, who would be responsible for that cost?
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
We have already done some testing on the site, and all the test holes came back, I'm going to say positive. In other words, they were fine. There was no contamination or anything like that.
Thank you. And there's been lots of community feedback with regard to developing the north side of the Kinsman Lake. Have you received any negative feedback about the east side being developed? And if so, what has that feedback been?
Madam Mayor, through you, I have not received any feedback, negative or positive, but I don't know if CAO Lagore has, through the Wheatland housing body, have they received any feedback?
And through you, Madam Chair, there's been no negative feedback on the site. You have to remember that this is east of Kinsman Park. It's undeveloped, raw land right now. It's either dirt or weeds that are growing there.
I completely agree. I see that, but I do want people to know that this is undeveloped, non-serviced land that does not have trees or is not being used. And to be using it in this purpose, I believe would be very favorable for our town and our residents. And I think it's going to bring people who really, when we're trying to think of how to develop our downtown core and support our downtown businesses, I can't think of a better way than going back to, our past and our seniors who are so devoted to this community. And I know that that will be just an end result of having this senior center there. I see that area as becoming more lively, and my hope is that children and seniors will be playing in the back together at the playground if possible, and that the seniors will be able to just walk over to the pavilion or walk over to the farmers market and access a lot of different services that perhaps are being, well, I can't say that they can't walk now, but I believe it is a good placement. And I very much support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. I'm going to go to Councillor Peterson. Sorry, Councillor Montgomery, but you've already spoken, so I'd like her to speak first.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had a question for you, Madam Chair, or CAO Lagore. We did, with Georgebury Architecture, carried out 8 community consultations, and Mayor Fuel and CAO, Wheatland Housing CAO Vicky Cook, and Wheatland Housing Chair Glenn Kester did a 9th consultation at the beginning of that. And are those still online? Is there still access to those online? Should, speaking to Councillor Bauer's concern, if anybody should want to go back and look at those, are they still available? Does anyone know? I haven't checked recently.
Through you, Madam Chair, all the consultation is supposed to still be available online through Wheatland Housing Management Body.
Thank you. And then the other thing I would just add, Chair, is that I think it's only fair that that the recognition for this site was the idea of Councillor Corbeil, supported by yourself, Chair, and very grateful for your forward thinking, something that wasn't readily considered by others in this very long conversation that we've had that was even before my time on council. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. I'm wondering what is the current proposed timeline for construction for this building?
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. We actually, I also sit on Wheatland Housing Management Board, and we actually haven't gotten to that stage as of yet. We are only in the planning stage.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
And does administration have any recommendations as far as expecting a timeline for this, property to be? Because I look at what happened with that, the piece of land that was sold by the town, in a prior term, right next to the town hall, and there was the expectation at the time that that would be developed into, office buildings and apartments, and it wasn't, and it might have been possible at the time to put some sort of a restriction or a request on there that that the land actually has something to be done with it in a certain amount of time. Because I'm just concerned that, we could sign this over to, Wheatland Housing, and then for any number of reasons, it doesn't get developed for, some amount of time. So I'm just wondering if administration has any sort of comments on maybe avoiding that kind of issue.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Mr. Simpson?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. That's a very good point that you make, Councillor Montgomery. My recommendation is that this land, and maybe CAO Lagore will correct me, but I don't think the transfer of this land should occur until it's confirmed that the project is going ahead. So if it doesn't go ahead let's hope it does, but if it doesn't go ahead, we would retain title to this property. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but administration, can you tell me who made the motion?
Corbill?
Councillor Corbill? Councillor Corbill, are you up for a friendly amendment to add that should Wheatland Housing not go through with the development of this land, that it reverts back to the town of Strathmore? Or does not get transferred until
You bet I'm
such?
gonna, until they're ready to build or whatever. I'm happy with that friendly amendment.
Mr. Simpson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually think the motion does cover it, believe it or not, because it says for the development of a new Wheatland Lodge seniors facility. So we're supporting the land donation, but it is to develop a new Wheatland Lodge. So, I mean, if you want to be even more, correct about it, I guess, or you could add to it. But I do believe that the motion, because in my view, if they do not go forward with it, then we would not transfer the land.
Are you okay with that, Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, if I'm understanding correctly, the transfer would have to be done through like a motion sometime in the future. Is that right?
We probably could bring it back. I'm not sure it would be necessary, because if they move forward and we got confirmation that the project was moving forward, we would then, because of this motion, be in a position to transfer the land. I mean, your administration will be extremely careful with this and ensure that the land isn't transferred until the facility is been approved and I think even started to some degree. So I don't think it's necessary to bring it back.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not, I guess, going to be binding ourselves in some way. So I'm happy with it as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Completely understandable. CAO Legore?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm just going to add, I support Mr. Simpson, what he's saying here. It's quite clear you're supporting the land donation for the development of a specific item. And if that item doesn't happen, the land transfer does not happen.
Thank you. Councillor Sobel?
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Not trying to make this any more complicated, but was there any consideration given to a time limit on this agreement, and one that could be reviewed in perhaps 2 years and signed on for another 2 years? I'm thinking about handcuffing a future council with a project that could go. I mean, nobody knows how long this is going to take. These are big dollars, and strange things happen in provincial government. So I'm just wondering if it's a good idea to review this every couple of years.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. I'm going to refer to Councillor Peterson as well as CAO Legore, but I do believe in our meetings that we discussed to be starting this project this fiscal year, so in September, October of this year, if it's a go forward. Councillor Peterson?
Well, I would defer to CAO Legore because of his conversations with Barrie Architecture, but you're correct, Madam Chair, and that is that by the end of this month, by the end of April, we should have a much better idea of costs. So we should have a very clear idea of per square foot costs for this building going forward. And then that will give us some purchase to continue on to the next steps that we have to do in terms of design capacity and funding. But I think that CAO Legore could speak more fully to the timeline out to what looks like 2024, but that has not been achieved yet through the specifics that we need. But I will leave that to our CAO.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, they're well into the design of this facility. We're beyond schematic design. This project, if it's going to happen, will happen within 2 years for sure.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Just in follow-up to CAO Legore's comments, And I would suggest that if for some reason this stalls for an extended period of time, I think administration would want to bring this forward, would want to talk to the body and find out what the issues are, because we certainly wouldn't want to tie the land up forever, but we would be able to come back and discuss it and bring it back to council, should that happen. But it does sound like there'll be action. My guess, and I think it's either going to happen in the next year, or it's probably not going to happen.
Correct. Okay. Thank you. Is there any further discussion or comments or concerns? So we do have a motion on the floor. I'm going to call the motion. All in favor? And that's approved. Thank you. And we are on agenda item, council committee appointments, public members.
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration has received applications for some open positions on a couple of our committees, and they have been approved by the nomination committee, and we were just looking for the appointments tonight.
Thank you. So I'm looking for a motion first. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. I will move that council accept recommendations from the nomination committee and appoint Ms. Donna Klassen to the Seniors Advisory Committee for a term ending October 31st, 2021, and that council appoint Ms. Brittany Olson and Ms. Lindsay Walker to the United Way Committee for a term ending October 31st, 2021.
Thank you. And is there any discussion on this motion? Councillor Montgomery? So there's a motion on the floor. All in favor? And that's moved. And we're moving on to committee reports. 10.1, reports from councillors from committees on which they sit. Councillor Sobel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one very small item. It's not a report. It's just a notice to council and to the public that the Chamber of Commerce annual general meeting will take place April 29th at 2 p.m. It will be virtual once again this year. And if anybody is interested in attending that AGM, they can just go to the Wheatland and Strathmore Chamber of Commerce website or Facebook page, and the information to sign up will be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. We did not have a meeting at the library board, but we did have an email that came out today that said that further to the AHS announcement that we're going back into stage 1, the library has received orders to close and close today, and will be closed until the restrictions are lifted. So there is an opportunity if you need to visit the library and use a computer. They are looking at ways of wheeling one out for the public so that they can go onto a job site or search the web, or that they are going to try and make that available, but all in-library services are suspended at this time. You can only take out books virtually and request them, and they'll greet you at the door. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Is there any other? And just administration, do I need a motion to? Can I have a motion to accept, please? Thanks, Councillor Corbill.
I move the council accept the committee reports for information.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And that's moved. Thank you. So we are moving on to items directly related to council, 11.1, policy procedures, unbudgeted projects proposal. And I believe Councillor Montgomery, you will be speaking to this matter?
Yes, thank you. So I guess I'll read the boilerplate first. So whereas council is responsible for the judicious allocation and spending of money on behalf of Strathmore projects or services, and whereas funding for some projects and services is sourced from borrowing, and whereas from time to time, administration will make recommendations to council to allocate unused budgeted funds from one project to additional projects, and whereas unbudgeted funds could be used to reduce the amount the town will need to borrow, and whereas the cost to borrow for a project should be included in the budget of the project based on the prevailing interest rate when being considered for use on unbudgeted projects. I will move that council direct administration to implement a policy or procedure where unbudgeted projects or proposals will be reviewed and presented using the prevailing cost to borrow the proposed amount of money necessary for the project. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just trying to clarify. So would this restrict council to only be able to borrow money for unbudgeted projects or proposals?
No, and I'll give you an example. So, for instance, like with the solar panel project, that the money from that is coming from the quote unquote unspent money from the town hall project, and the same week that we passed the solar project, we also moved a borrowing bylaw that we'll be working on tonight to borrow, $1 million plus. And so the idea is that if, when we're looking at projects where we're using leftover money, we should actually be including the cost of interest in that money, because we could be using that to pay down the debt or to borrow less, essentially. So all it's doing is just basically adding a certain amount for interest when we're looking at the cost of projects.
I don't know why this is not going through, but it says using the prevailing costs. That's of the costs of the unbudgeted project or proposal to borrow the proposed amount of money.
Yeah. Well, so for instance, with the solar panel project, let's say we are going to put $70,000 in. It's just $70,000. But if we're actually looking at the fact that we could have put that $70,000 towards not borrowing the money that we were going to have to pay interest on, we're essentially paying interest on that $70,000 by having to borrow more money on top of it. So in the case of the solar panels, for instance, if let's say it's a 2.5% interest rate that we have to borrow money at, we should be saying, okay, this money for the solar panels isn't really $70,000. It's actually $70,000 plus, the 2.5% interest rate for however many years.
I fully comprehend that. I got that, but I'm not sure that this is what this is saying, because this says that when there's an unbudgeted project, you will use those costs to borrow the proposed amount. It doesn't say.
The motion.
If I could just finish. Yep. It doesn't say that you can get the money from another source as allowed by council. It says that you have to borrow the proposed amount.
No, it doesn't say that we have to borrow. It says that when the proposals are reviewed or presented, it's going to be using the prevailing cost to borrow. So only when it's presented to us, it has to come with that extra cost added to it. So that's not to say that we're actually going to be borrowing the money or paying interest on it. That just means that when we look at a project, if it's with unspent money from something else, and we're actually, so it's only for the point of reviewing the project. It has nothing to do with actually the source of the money.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Administration?
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration has a small suggestion for council to consider, perhaps for the wording of the motion. Instead of it saying that, I'll just read it. So that council direct administration to implement a policy or procedure where unbudgeted projects or proposals will be reviewed and presented You could either use indicating or displaying the prevailing cost to borrow the proposed amount of money necessary for the project. Would that be more clear?
Yeah, that's fine with me. If I would certainly accept that amendment from Councillor Administration.
Councillor Sobel?
Yep, yeah, I'm good with that. Thank you. Yeah, that now I finally got it through this thick head. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer, did you have a comment?
I'm sorry, Your Worship, I was kicked out of the feed and now I'm back in. I missed the amendment. Would administration be able to please reread it again?
Yes.
So the amendment would say that council direct administration to implement a policy or procedure where unbudgeted projects or proposals will be reviewed and presented, indicating the prevailing cost to borrow the proposed amount of money necessary for the project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Is there any more comments or questions? So I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is approved.
Thank you.
And we're moving on to bylaws. 12.1, bylaw number 21-12, infrastructure borrowing bylaw. Mr. Teedy is presenting.
Thank you. Bylaw 20-12 provides the financial resources to implement the 2021 capital projects contained within the 5-year capital budget. The MGA requires the passing of a borrowing bylaw prior to construction of an asset or purchase of an asset. Council completed the first reading of bylaw 21-12 March 3rd of this year. Following the first reading of the bylaw, a public notice of the bylaw was advertised in the Strathmore Times. Administration received no responses from the public regarding the public notice. It is anticipated that the borrowing would be completed this month utilizing bankers' acceptances with the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. The advantage of using bankers' acceptances compared to borrowing from the province of Alberta is that this approach gives more flexibility on repayment terms at the same interest rate. The financing is over 15 years with a 10-year term. The interest rate is fixed for the initial 10 years. The projected interest rate will be between 2.35 to 2.45% and is determined at the date of draw. As at December 31st, 2020, the debt utilization was 51.4% of the provincial limit and 46% of the debt servicing limit. In addition to second and third reading, I would ask that Council also approve a motion authorizing the Mayor and CAO to sign borrowing documentation to complete the borrowing contained within this bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teedy. I'm actually looking for someone to give the second reading and then we can have discussion. Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you. I will move the council give second reading to bylaw number 21-12, infrastructure borrowing bylaw.
Thank you. And is there any discussion or comments? Councillor Corbill?
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have one quick question for Mr. Teedy. Regardless of where we borrow, the rate of debt percentage will still be recorded regardless, right?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
You bet. The rate of debt percent, like on our financials, it'll still be recorded regardless where we borrow.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corbill. Councillor Bauer?
Hi, I just, thank you, Your Worship. I just would like Mr. Teedy, please, to expand on what this money will be used for, and if he could please say the full amount of the money that is needed for this borrowing bylaw, just so everyone knows.
The amount to be borrowed is $1,185,148 for the purpose of water and sewer line replacements at various locations within the town of Strathmore, stormwater outfall improvements at Strathmore Lakes, wastewater system and equipment replacements and upgrades within the wastewater treatment plant, and roadway improvements at Westmount Drive and Highway 1.
Thank you. And how were these improvements, how is it ascertained that these improvements needed to be done now instead of waiting?
The projects were all contained within the capital budget that was discussed by council at budget time.
And were there studies that show that this infrastructure needs to be replaced?
Yes, there was.
Thank you.
Are there any further discussions or comments from any other councillors? We have a reading on the floor. All in favor? And that's moved. I'm looking for another. Councillor Corbeil.
I move that council give third reading to bylaw number 21-12, infrastructure borrowing bylaw. Do you want me to include the mayor and the CAO in this part, or is that a separate one?
Separate motion, Councillor Corbeil. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
There is a motion on the floor. All in favor? And that's carried. And I'm looking for a final motion. Councillor Peterson?
Your worship, I would move that council ask or grant permission to the mayor and CAO Legore to complete the signing for bylaw 21-12 infrastructure borrowing bylaw.
Is that more clarification?
Borrowing documentation for the signing of borrowing.
Councillor Peterson, would you be amicable to a friendly amendment for including all borrowing documentation to be executed by the mayor and CAO?
Thank you, your worship, yes.
Administration, we're good? You've heard the motion. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So we're moving on to discussions of bylaw number 21-07, off-site levy bylaw. And I believe at this time we're having discussions as to which meeting we would like to bring it forward to. Councillor Peterson, did you have a discussion? Councillor Sobel, were you wanting to?
No, my only comment would be that this is set for today's agenda, and I haven't heard a reason why we should move this anywhere. I think it should be dealt with today, so that would be my position. Thank you.
Well, I'm looking for a motion or something to give me some direction. Oh, Councillor, I'm looking at administration's looking at me. CAO?
Your Worship, I believe that Your Worship had some comments in regard to this matter, in regard to postponing it. Before moving any motion forward for any reading, I would recommend that Council consider the possible postponement if that's indeed what they're going to do.
Thank you, administration. So we were considering moving, or what's the word that I would be looking for? Postponing, thank you very much, this motion to either the committee of the whole, or it was recommended the April 21st regular council meeting. The reason that we wanted to do this was so that all of council could be there. I realize that that might never be a possibility, but it is a very impactful bylaw, and I believe that there are many comments that need to be made. There are some discussions. I do understand where you're that some of these discussions should have been brought forward to Mr. Simpson over the last 2 weeks, but he hasn't had any. So again, it is completely up to council whether or not we move forward with this, but we have the recommendation to postpone this bylaw. Councillor Sobel, did you have comments? No?
Just in response, you know, I think it's telling that there were no questions asked of administration in the last 2 weeks. That's why the matter was adjourned to today's date, was to give council the opportunity to ask questions and get clarification on issues. There were none. I don't understand why we're moving this item forward, but that will be the will of council.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Just for clarification, this was not postponed or adjourned. First reading was given at the last regular council meeting. It has never been tabled or postponed.
Yeah, my apologies, Your Worship. You're correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Montgomery.
I'll move that council postpone the further readings of bylaw 21-07 and ask that this be placed on the committee of the whole, the April 14th committee of the whole agenda for further discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Bauer, did you have discussions?
Yes, it's important to me to be able to reach out to some of the local developers and people that would be impacted by this bylaw. I have not had a chance to do that, and I would like to look at it a little further. I apologize. I did not forward questions to Mr. Simpson, but I will. It's incumbent on me now to do so, and I will plan on doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. I'm just looking for a little bit of clarification. The discussion about the committee of the whole meeting being too full, we're still, okay. So there is a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Oh, Councillor Montgomery?
I just wanted to thank administration for their work on this so far. I really appreciate all the information that they provided, and so I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. And there is a motion on the floor. All in favor? And all opposed? Thank you. That motion has been passed for. And moving on to bylaw number 12. ATCO Gas Natural Gas Franchise Agreement Renewal. This is first reading, correct? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, bylaw number 21-14. Recommendation is we give first reading to bylaw 21-14 Natural Gas Franchise Agreement Renewal. I'll just a very brief background on this. To my surprise, I was advised that our franchise agreement had expired. Fortunately, it runs on a month-to-month basis until a new agreement is approved, so it's still in effect on a month-to-month basis with all the same conditions. So that's good news. There's probably 15 steps in getting a franchise bylaw franchise agreement in place. I think 15 steps, and we need approval of the Alberta Utilities Board. So it's going to take probably 2 to 4 months before we can get the agreement in place. The new proposed agreement we're proposing to commence on the latter of June 1st, 2021, or the first business day after both of the following has occurred. That we would require approval by the Alberta Utilities Commission and Council of the Town of Strathmore pass third reading of this bylaw. The agreement is a 15-year agreement that would expire on June 1st, 2036 is what we're proposing. We're giving ATCO exclusive right within the municipality to provide natural gas distribution service, construct, operate, and maintain the distribution system, and using a portion of our roads, abiding by all our guidelines and repairs. They would be responsible if they had to dig up a road or anything like that. And that's all part of the agreement with the ATCO. The franchise fee will be 35% calculated on ATCO's actual total revenue derived from the delivery tariff, including without limitation the fixed charge, base energy charge, demand charge, but excluding the cost of natural gas. Mr. Teedy from our Director of Corporate Services has already applied for the increase in our fee to 35%. That is the max that we're allowed to charge under the Act. And he's already applied for it. So this, I think by the time we move along with this, it will already be approved, but it will be in our agreement that it's 35%. With that, Madam Mayor, I recommend that Council consider first reading to this bylaw tonight, and there is no discussion.
Your worship, I would move the council give first reading to bylaw number 21-14, natural gas franchise agreement renewal.
Terry, you're muted.
Thank you. That motion is now on the floor, and I'm looking for all in favor, please. Thank you. That motion is passed. There is no urgent business. There is no questions between councillors. We're looking to administrative inquiry responses. 15.1 regarding the garbage receptacles. Is there any questions or comments on that specific admin inquiry? Councillor Peterson, did you have comments on that specific? Councillor Montgomery.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank administration for all their work on this. This is above and beyond what all the work that went into this, and I look forward to hopefully figuring out some way we can act on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Any further discussion on 15.1, garbage receptacles? And 15.2, the administrative response regarding the streetlights at George Freeman Trail and Centennial Drive. Any questions or comments with respect to that administrative inquiry? Seeing none. Their administration has 2 new admin inquiries.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Your Worship. The first one is from Councillor Sobel. Recently, councils for Siksika and Strathmore began regular meetings again with the goal of improving relationships and increasing respect. The other goal is to eradicate racism through education and awareness in our communities. One of the subcommittees of this group, of which I am a member, is tasked with focusing on the area of sports. My question for administration is what policies or regulations are in existence that deal with the issue of racial harassment, treating a person differently because of his or her color, racial, or ethnic background in any of our municipal sports facilities and the possible consequences of such actions. The second admin inquiry is from Councillor Bauer. Recently, I became aware of the increased amount of pedestrian traffic walking on the paved pathway along George Freeman Trail at night. I am concerned about black ice, safety, and visibility with the lack of lighting along that stretch of the south of the traffic lights to the ranch. Would admin please look into the cost of placing either large poles or smaller ones along the path? Solar lights could also be an option to light the path and keep it safe. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your patience with me, with administration, and with tonight's meeting. And with that, I'm actually looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Corbeil.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And that's carried. Good night, everybody.